Welcome back everyone, it's Mags, and previously I covered a wonderfully written game developed and published by Nipponichi Software called The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince. It's stylized like a storybook and very obviously inspired by fairy tales, with everything being softly narrated to you with cute illustrations of a whimsical and magical world. It was written and illustrated by one Sayaka Oda, and just a few years after this work, in 2022, she got to make somewhat of a follow-up in the form of The Cruel King and the Great Hero, released for the PS4, the second in what are now commonly called the storybook games. The Cruel King is not a direct sequel, but it is a thematic one. I mean, just look at it. One glance is all it takes to fool someone into thinking they're related, in no small part thanks to Oda's distinctive art style. The entire tone and presentation of the game is exactly the same, and even has the same VA doing all the narration. However, the story is very different, with entirely new characters and an entirely new setting. The gameplay is different as well. This is actually not a puzzle game. This is a turn-based RPG. So, as you may expect from that, it's significantly longer than The Liar Princess, and that makes it able to expand on its world more, something it takes full advantage of. The story this time around follows you, not you, but you, a small human child whose parents passed away when she was young, and was subsequently taken in and raised by monsters. The groundwork for the kind of world this is very similar to Liar Princess, where humans and monsters really do not get along, so this situation is highly unusual. Most monsters have a low opinion of humans, and both groups just kind of keep to themselves. Yu's adoptive father, however, does not think this way, and unfortunately for the monsters who do, he is also the king. The Dragon King, as he's known as, actively seeks to better the relationship between humans and monsters. And that's what he and Yu do together. They live and try to rule the kingdom to the best of their ability. In this way, Yu is technically also a princess, although the furthest she could possibly be to a liar one. She is just about the most honest and earnest kid on the planet. Her dream is to become a great hero, because that's what her father was. In fact, he was the legendary great hero, renowned for slaying the dreaded Demon King in days past. The Dragon King would tell Yu countless stories about her father's heroic deeds before he passed, and so Yu wants to be just like him. Basically, the entire plot of the game happens because the Dragon King wants nothing more than for Yu to be able to fulfill that dream. He motivates her to help people, trains her to become stronger, and concocts a little scheme, a little devilish deed, if you will, to get her recognized by the entire world as a great hero. He just wants to be a good dad. He reads Yu to sleep every night, he watches over her when she goes out, something you can actually see in the background, and even secretly helps her out with some of her attacks. It's so precious. There's something to be said about too much hand-holding, and it seemed like that theme was going to be a lot more prevalent. It's not, but I do still love the story that was told. It's really all about Yu and the Dragon King's relationship. Yu just wants to be a hero, and the Dragon King just wants to be a good father, despite both being a monster and a dark past holding him back. I won't say much else because, like its predecessor, it is a story in equal parts adorable and heart-wrenching. In the meantime, Yu's first step towards achieving her dream of heroism is getting her boots on the ground and helping out anyone she can in the Monster Village, which is your central hub. While in the village, there are a whole host of side quests available as Yu helps everyone out that tell their own story. It's through these quests that you can really get to know everyone in the village and get attached to them, which I absolutely love. They do a great job of actually characterizing everyone, and they're all involved in multiple different quests. There are side quests that build on the events of previous ones, and the more you complete, the more you get to watch the village change as characters befriend one another and go on their own little adventures. It may get incredibly tedious at times, but it is absolutely worth doing all of them. This game doesn't shy away from touching on some relatively heavy subjects, and so the character progressions in the villagers you see throughout the side quests are surprisingly deep. Just like Liar Princess, The Cruel King has an unbelievable amount of charm to it. The soundtrack alone is worthy of a ton of praise. I like it even better than Liar Princess's. Just being in the monster village with everyone while that track plays in the background is so cozy. All the other music is great too. I especially love the Fountain World theme and the Honey Crystal Woods theme. The art overall is definitely more colorful than it was in Liar Princess. It still looks the same, but it's not nearly as monotone, letting all the colors pop and making the world feel more alive, which is more fitting for this game. I love all the creature designs too. Oda really made use of these wide circular eyes that had a kind of silliness that I just adore. Like on the Dragon King himself, Rocky, and especially the honey bears, these things really make me laugh. Some of them, like the raccoons, are even reused from Liar Princess. As you can probably expect, the gameplay is very simple, but it's definitely not without its quirks and charm. It uses random encounters, and for a while, Yu is the only party member you have. You do meet more along the way, obviously, but the maximum amount of party members you can battle with at once is only 2. One other character besides Yu. For most of the game, you're only traveling with one other character anyway, so there's no picking and choosing. They come and go as the plot demands, so your partner is constantly changing. They all have their their own weapon and armor types they can equip, and while accessories are equipable by anyone, they're automatically removed when they leave the party, so you don't actually lose anything. But there's always that feeling of loss when you've gotten so used to a character's abilities and moveset, and then suddenly don't have access to it anymore. There are a total of 3 other characters you meet and fight with throughout the story, and it won't be until the very end of the game where you'll have access to them again. The very last chapter is when you can finally pick and choose between any 3 at any time, but they'll be at the same level they last left off at, which is very low by that point, and it can feel like a drag trying to get them up to snuff again. Also, you have to walk all the way back to the monster den every time you want to swap out, which can be tedious. There is fast travel, but it's still effort. In battle, you basically have everything you'd expect: normal attack, special skills, guarding, and fleeing. Special skills use energy, which works a little differently than your standard SP system. 1 energy is restored per turn in battle, and a benefit to guarding is that it restores an extra 1 energy, so you're incentivized to do that as a way to build up more energy and use more skills. There are an insane amount of accessories in the game that give you a ton of different effects, thanks to basically every side quest giving you a unique one, in addition to others you'll find around the map from chests. One of the most useful ones I almost always had on was one that makes guarding restore 3 extra energy instead of just 1, which went a long way in making battles feel less tedious. It's a cool system, but given how simple the game is, you're pretty much railroaded into using the same general strategies for every fight, especially boss fights. Your energy pool is small, so generally using skills just once or twice is going to deplete it. So the general cycle is to just spend turns guarding to build up energy, use your best attacks, and keep rinsing and repeating. There's not much of a selection of skills. Characters generally have 1 or 2 strong offensive skills, and then some support skills which don't have too much of an impact. It made the battles feel pretty monotonous, unfortunately. Even just a greater variety of skills could have gone a long way. That's almost doubly true for random encounters. Each character has 1, maybe 2 skills that have any kind of AoE to them, and AoE rarely means targeting all enemies. A lot of the time there's a specific path the attack takes, so if you target an enemy with it, any other enemy on that same path will also get hit. It's pretty unique and definitely makes you think about your attacks more in regards to what to target, but it wasn't really implemented in a satisfying way. A lot of enemy formations actually render these AoEs useless, as no matter who you target, you're only gonna hit 1 enemy anyway. Or encounters will have so many enemies that it hardly makes much of a difference. It's not uncommon to see 4 or even 5 enemies in an encounter. With only 2 party members to do any kind of damage, and no way to skip attack animations either, random encounters can just feel like they go on and on. The battle system does have some other cool ideas though. For one, items and attacks actually aren't limited to one side you can use them on. If you really want to, you could, say, use a healing item on an enemy, or just attack a party member, or poison them, because why not, I guess. Actually, I'll tell you why: the weakness system. Each monster species has its own unique weakness, and these aren't just your standard weaknesses to different types of attacks. In fact, hardly any of them have to do with attacking at all. Yu has a skill that doesn't cost any energy called Survey, and using it on an enemy will give a vague hint as to what its weakness is. Hitting the weakness will stun it for 1 turn, and if Yu uses another 0 energy skill called Release, the monster will be spared and will disappear from battle. The weaknesses can be basically anything. The Ox monsters, for example, say, "I want to be fed by a princess" as their survey prompt. Their weakness, then, is specifically Flora, the princess, feeding a healing fruit to them. Yes, some of them require specific party members. If she does this, they'll be stunned. The rock crab's weakness is just being completely ignored for the entirety that it goes into its defensive stance. Each one is like a little puzzle, which is awesome. It's hardly practical, like, at all, but it's cool. I think it's a pretty good way to show off Yu's merciful side while also breaking the typical conventions you'd normally see in a turn-based RPG. Also, there's a trophy for releasing every single unique monster, so if you want the platinum, you're gonna have to be intimately familiar with all of them. The world is split into 5 major areas and 2 hubs. The one major hub is the Monster Village, where you take the majority of side quests and where all the villagers reside. The other hub-ish place is the Monster Den, which is you and the Dragon King's home. Not too far into the game, fast travel opens up, which lets you instantly teleport to any fountains you've encountered and interacted with. Now, even with fast travel, one of my biggest gripes about the game is how tedious it is to travel the map. Despite the game seemingly wanting to prevent that, Yu walks very slowly, but once you're over-leveled relative to the enemies in a particular area, you then have the ability to run in that area, which also lowers the rate of random encounters, but it's not by much. You're still gonna get them more than often enough. There's a special item called Monster Bane that can ward off encounters even more for a limited time, but even that's not to 0, which means there's no way to completely avoid them. And stocking up on Monster Bane is going to be expensive for most of the game. Each area is pretty big and yet only has 1 or 2 fountains, so when you're doing things like completing side quests, which will have you running all over the map collecting various things, it is just so needlessly slow. It wasn't uncommon for just a few side quests at a time to take upwards of an hour or more to complete. The side quests are also weirdly spaced out. You'll have a few to do per chapter, but then in the final chapter, every single other one becomes available, which you would expect, but that is also the grand majority of them. Again though, I still think it's worth doing all of them just to see the entire village's side story, because it does make you appreciate the characters so much more. Also, if you do all of them before beating the final boss, you may get a little something extra in the ending, is all I'll say. You can also unlock concept art as you do them, which is always a treat to see. I mean, come on, look at this. The trophies for this game aren't terrible, for the most part. A lot of them are just from playing the game. The most reasonable out-of-your-way trophies are for doing all the side quests and viewing all the subsequent concept art and secret ending scene. But there are also some that I would say are unreasonably out of your way. For one, getting each character to max level, which is 50. This is basically just taking a character to the final area in the game and grinding there. It's pretty cut and dry, but the time sink is a lot. Not only does it take a lot of experience to level up, even just after level 40, but if you'll remember, you can only use one other party member besides you at a time. So you have to level nearly everybody individually. There is a special accessory called the treasure tome that gives the wearer 50% more experience, which is nice. You should definitely use it, but it is still incredibly tedious. The other trophy that I was just bewildered by is the one I briefly mentioned before, where you have to release at least one of every single unique monster type, which means encountering them all, hitting their weakness, and then using use release skill on them while they're stunned. It's just as time consuming as it sounds. There's a good guide made by GreenZSaber that lists which enemies can be found in each major location, and what the weaknesses are for every enemy. Some enemies though can only be found in very specific places within those areas, and luckily there's a good video that points out all the precise areas for every enemy as well. Some of the weaknesses are an incredible pain, like the Griffin needing to miss 3 times, which is pure RNG. Oh, and they can also apply the ceiling debuff, which prevents you from using skills, and since hitting a weakness only stuns an enemy for 1 turn, if you happens to be sealed when that happens, you're shit out of luck. A particular favorite of mine is the ant gobblers. They have an attack where they'll lick you if you have a certain status ailment on, and getting licked stuns you for a few turns. Each ant gobbler type has a different ailment they like to lick. To hit their weakness, you need to make them regret licking you by having them lick someone who's poisoned, which means you need to intentionally apply 2 negative status ailments to use partner, poison, and whichever ailment will trigger the licking, then get the ant gobbler to lick them, and then release it, which can go so wrong in so many different ways. This trophy alone makes this game an absolute bitch to platinum, and the grinding trophy to a slightly lesser extent. Overall though, The Cruel King and The Great Hero was an incredible follow-up to Liar Princess. Both titles use totally different gameplay formats, but they're both representative of their respective stories. You wants to be a great hero, so a turn-based RPG where she's traveling, fighting monsters, getting stronger, and helping out citizens through side quests is perfect. That is her being a great hero. I really wish it was less tedious in a lot of aspects, but the charm of it really carries through, with a fantastic story to boot, and a whole host of meaningful side quests for more character interactions and development. I would recommend this game if you don't mind some slow gameplay. I absolutely love it overall. And as I mentioned in the Liar Princess video, which you should totally go watch after this, there is a 3rd storybook game releasing in Japan in 2026. No word yet on whether it'll be localized or not, but keep your fingers crossed. I sure will be. I've been Mags, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.